Starting to chant the Namaskara, we remind ourselves about the great sacrifice that the Lord Buddha as a Bodhisattva has undertaken to find the teachings, find the Dhamma, and find the truth in order for us today, having chance, having the ability to change our life into a different direction, change our lives to achieve unconditional freedom, happiness, freedom from suffering, and escape from the journey of samsara. In order to do that, let us chant the Namaskara and pay our homage and renew our determination to practice the path and free ourselves from all suffering. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. So, why do we offer water to the Lord Buddha? What are we, when we do that, what's the meaning behind that kind of offering? I think there are not one answer to this. Many people might have different answers. And you can think about the answer that you have in your mind when you do that. But I will share with you the two answers that I use. Because here in our monastery, every one of us is asked to, or not asked to, but we are recommended to do it every day, at least once. Some of us do it when we wake up in the morning. Some of us are doing it when we go to sleep. So usually for me, it is something like I do before I go to sleep. Normally at the end of the day, when we confess to another monk and then we worship our teachers, Guru Tero, Amadasana Tero, our teachers, and of course the Lord Buddha is the very first teacher that we worship. And after that I offer a glass of water. And I started to do that also even when I was in Germany. After I was listening to the sermons by my teacher, he recommended, or he told that he's doing it, and then I started to do it as well. So now this is the meaning that I see in there. Water has a quality. That quality is it is something pure. So purity is one of the qualities. And purity is something that we also aspire to on this path. On the noble path, purity is a goal. Purity not in body, purity not in external ways, but purity in our minds, purity in our thoughts, unlimited loving kindness, compassion, and full of goodwill. No vexation. That's the most important point. No vexation. So, vexation we can imagine is something like it's cooking the water, right? So, when I offer this glass of water, I remind myself and I make this determination that just as pure as this water is, may also my mind and the mind, all minds, We say all minds, may they also be as pure as this water. May they become as pure as this water. So this is like a reminder. It's a reminder for the purpose why we are living, I would say. It's a merit, so we are creating an energy. This energy will drive us along on this path, right? So this is one aspect. And that's how we can start to do it, I think. So if you do this already or not doesn't matter, but I think I can recommend you to do it, and that's one way to think about it. Another quality you can see in water is the quality to quench thirst, right? So I think that's a more common understanding of this offering, the ability to quench thirst. So when we are thirsty, water can help us to free us from being thirsty. This is something that it does for our body. And in the same way, the Dhamma is something which can quench our desires, our wantings, our sufferings, mental sufferings, everything that arises because of wanting, because of everything that leads to vexation ultimately, we can get rid of by offering, with the Dhamma, right? So in that sense, the Dhamma is like a quencher of thirst. And you can actually go and think about these analogies in a very deep way, the more you understand this principle of cause and effect, right? Because you can see cause and effect, this principle of cause and effect right there, even when we are talking about what water does to our body and how thirst is something that can be quenched, right? So I'll give you a little bit idea about this as well, right? So thirst, when it happens to us, it has causes, right? So let's imagine, so when we're talking about the Dhamma is like, another analogy I will give you, the Dhamma is like when you want to clean your plate. When you have eaten something, you have a plate, but usually it's dirty, right, when you have finished eating something. So now you need to clean that, cleaning your bowl, right? So how do you do that? You need certain causes to make it happen. You need soap. That's one cause. But soap alone won't do it. What else do you need? You need water. So you need soap and water. But is that enough? No. You need to mix it. But mixing soap and water alone doesn't do the job either, because you want the soap to go where the fat or the oil or the dirt, the remainders, the food remainders, where they are. You want the soap water mixture to go where the oil is. So what you want to bring together is the oil and the water soap mixture, right? When you bring these things together, you can give rise to a new effect. So so how do we do that usually? How do we bring together the soap, water with the oil? Usually we do that by applying some force with our hands, right? So by scrubbing, using, maybe sometimes we use a sponge, or things like that. So these are basically the causes. We need to apply some rubbing. This is another cause. Rubbing is a cause. Soap is a cause. Water is a cause. And of course oil and the bowl, these are the causes. And when they come together, they give rise to a new effect. That effect is, now you have a clean bowl, we can say. You have a clean bowl. Or what happens actually is, the oil and the soap together give rise to something else. We call it as dissolving. It's the effect of dissolving, right? Now, in other words, it is an example of cause and effect. Now, the Dhamma is the same. The Dhamma is like, so when we are drawing these vipakas, now I'm going to explain that in more detail as we go on. When we are drawing these vipakas, like, our experience is something like a reaction. In our experience, we have two kinds of parts. I'll try to explain this a little bit. So we experience the world in two aspects, karma and vipaka, but I want to explain this to you maybe in a way that you haven't heard before. In a simple way, I hope. So, undoubtedly, we all know that we are alive, that we experience the world, and we experience it in two aspects. And these two aspects is, as I explained to you before, the things we see, things we hear, things we smell, taste and touch, and the things we think about. These are like we can call it I call it the reaction. The reaction of a previous action or vipaka. So this is nothing else than sight, sound, smell, taste and touch and thought. Do you have an idea what these things mean? Sight, sound, smell? Yeah, right? Simply seeing, hearing, senses, yes. These are the things that happen to us. It could be seeing of this pen is now what's happening, whether you like it or not. So this is not something we do. It's something that happens when the causes come together. Right now, seeing happens. It's not something you decided to do. Right? You didn't decide to see this pen. But right now, all the causes aligned for the seeing of this pen to happen. Right? So this is like a reaction of an action that has happened. Right? So life happens to us, right? Events, experiences happen to us every day. But then also to these events we have responses. So I am going to make it a little bit simpler. I will write down simply events. Then to every event that happens to our lives, there is an action or there's a response. The way we respond to the event is also there, right? So that means you can see this pen and you can decide to take it and do something with it, to write with it. You can decide to steal it, you can decide to donate it to someone. All these are possible things you can do. When you see something in the shop, when you go along the street and you see something in a shop, maybe you see a piece of cake. Now then we can call it as a vipaka. That is an experience that has been generated. You see something, but what you decide to do with it is the response. Right? So these are the two things. Now why was I explaining about this? I was explaining about Dhamma Vipaka. So, for example, when you heard about this sermon, when you heard that this sermon happens, or when somebody told you about it, or when you saw the flyer or something like that, you saw something and there was a kind of thought came to your mind. Maybe, oh, that should be interesting, maybe I should go there, or maybe not, whatever. Some kind of idea came to you. Was it something you did? Was it your thought? Or wasn't it just something that came to you? It happened. Just like when I tell you, elephant, a picture of an elephant comes into your mind. It's not something that you do deliberately. And you can't even stop that from happening, right? It's just something that is being generated. Right? Similarly, right now you don't see a pen, now you see a pen. Whether that just happens, right? So in that sense, these are not things that we do or that someone does. These are things that happen. And we'll talk about this principle later, more and more. But however, when I'm talking about Dhamma Vipaka, then what I mean is that, you realizing the Dhamma, you understanding the truth, is that something that you can do, or is that not something that also happens when the right environment exists in your mind, when the right causes exist? So if the mind has the right mood, the right qualities, parameters, and all these things are there, then, so when you come to this sermon, for example, different people will understand different amount from the same thing that's being said. That can happen. That is based on, because the understanding that you have, that happens with you, is not something I can give you through the words. Right? I can't give you what you understand when I'm talking. It's not what I'm giving to you. It's not what I have in my mind, right? Even the story that I tell you from when I went, for example, I can tell you I went to travel to Spain, and there I met a man. Now, when I tell these words, you don't see the same man that I met in your mind, right? You make up your own man. Similarly, when I explain a concept to you, even when I talk about vipaka and senses and responses, you can't feel what I'm feeling when I say these words. You feel something that's happening in your mind based on your mind's faculties, your mind's ability of wisdom, your mind's ability of your merit power, the merits that come, and different causes, right? So that means I can't give you what I feel just like that. It happens in your mind. So like that, when we do merits, that's like an energy which helps us to see and realize the truth. For example, when we are listening to a sermon, which is the very first step that should happen. In order to start on the noble path, you have to first listen to sermons. This is the very first step. Otherwise, without a sermon, to walking on the noble eightfold path means that you become a Buddha. Because the Buddha was someone who could find the Dhamma without anyone's help. Other than that, we have to get help from somebody. So we need to make use of the environment of someone who has a certain mindset, who can create the environment, and using that environment we can give rise to this understanding in our own mind. Right? That's how it works. But now what I want to explain, when I gave you this example at the beginning, I talked about how we clean a bowl. So I'll write down again this idea. How do we clean something? It is a very simple example when we go to kitchen, when we clean a plate, but I want to do this because I want us to train to understand about this anicca, cause and effect. So in order to clean, so this is the plate and these are the dirt. In order to clean this, we need to bring some causes together so we can change that arrangement. Okay? So the causes to clean, I said, was when you bring oil together with soap and water, and when you rub it, so you apply some physical force. Now you can give rise to clean plate. Similarly, when we're talking about purifying our mind, so we started this discussion with the water bowl, the purity of the water. So to purify our mind, how does it work? This is also a process. The process is certain causes need to come together. Right now we are experiencing life through a mind which has defilements. It's like we are experiencing life through a plate which has dirt. That makes us feel all these feelings like jealousy, anger, stress, desire, upset, angry, and so on, right? But how does it work? How does this practice of the noble path work? It works by, when you draw, the Dhamma is like soap, I would say. The Dhamma is like a soap, which means it's one cause. Without soap, you cannot really clean this plate. Okay? So you need the soap, but soap alone will not be enough. That's why you need to have soap, and you need to have water, and you have to rub it as well. So what we do here in the sermons is, we give you the soap. You get the soap by listening to the Dhamma. It's like you get the soap. But soap alone is not what will do it for you. Even when you're listening to the sermon, what you have to do is you need to follow along and think along with the preacher and apply what he explains to your life, so that you can see for yourself how that's true. Because then you can do it by yourself. From there on, you can do this by yourself. You can apply the concepts without help of a teacher after that. Now, that's what we call meditation. So meditation is, once you have the soap, now you can use it. The act of using soap and cleaning your plate, this flushing the bowl using, like one rubbing is like one act of contemplation. Once you rub here, what happens is, some soap water, which is like the Dhamma, plus your rubbing, which is the contemplation, the act of contemplating, will come together with this oil, which are the defilements, and give rise to new effect, to something, to a clean mind ultimately. Clean mind means now you no longer have a mind which has defilements, right? So that's how it works. Now the principle of cause and effect is very deep. We are going to talk about it little by little more and more. How it is possible to clean something, right? I'll give you this one point, so just you can think about it a little bit. You can only clean something which is not actually, let's say, fully done. If something is fully created and finished, complete, then that cannot be changed anymore, right? So for example, we always feel, don't you feel like when you cook something, what do we do when we cook? We take some rice, raw rice, we take some water, we add some heat, we cook it, and now we cook something, and at the end of the day we have a meal, a fully cooked meal in front of our table. So we feel like now we have completed something. We have completed the meal. The meal is now finished. Now what we have in front of us is food, right? It's something that's complete. We don't feel that this is something that's happening, that's still in the process of becoming. We feel that it has become food. So this is now food. Isn't it strange that if this is food, how can you digest? How can you digest something that is being created? That would never be possible. Food is something that we can absorb, food is something that we can digest, because it's actually not food. It's still something that's happening. That's why it can be changed. That's why it can be broken in different pieces and reused and made something else out of it. So you can make something else out of it because it's still in the process of becoming. Otherwise, if it would be done, you wouldn't be able to make something out of it. It would be a unit, what we call a unit. But there's no such thing called a unit in this world. And this is also not something fixed. That's why you can still change it, right? For example, the light that you see here, we feel that now this is something that's shining for a long time, maybe 10 minutes, it's shining on my face. So it's the same light that's shining since 10 minutes. In other words, is there something happening, or is it just there? It's just there. But actually, the reality is not like that. The reality is this light, it's new light continuously radiating out, happening. So that's why you can always change the causes of anything to give rise to a new effect. So for example, there's usually at these lights, there's a kind of a knob at the end, at the back side, where you can change the temperature, the color. That's why once you turn this knob, you can change the causes and give rise to a new resultant effect, which the resultant effect is now the color that shines, or the light that you see. Because that light is also an effect. I'll give you another example here for an effect. This light, for this light to manifest, what are some of the causes which are necessary for this light to manifest that we have? Surely, the lamp should be one, right? We can broadly say the lamp. But is that all? No. What else do we need? Electricity. So at least these two causes we need. So continuously electricity has to be supplied. And now, even when we're talking about this lamp, I mean, there are so many causes which come together as a lamp that we can also manipulate. So for example, as I said, the knob itself is also one of the causes which affects the lamp itself. So actually we can split this up into many more causes. How much, where the knob is turned, and maybe then there's different kind of regulations. So even when we're talking about the voice that you're hearing, right? I mean, there's a mixer. The mixer is also something that, I mean, for this sound that you're hearing right now, aren't there also many causes that all have to come together for this effect to happen? What are the causes? Electricity is one of the causes. This microphone is one of the causes. My voice, my mouth, this body is one of the causes. So for example, if I'm having a cold, so if I have a sour throat, then one cause has changed. Now the effect that you will hear will be different, the voice that you will hear. But if the microphone has changed, same, right? If somebody changes something in the mixer, you will also hear something else, right? Sometimes he will put the bass higher, and now the effect will change. Actually, it's not the voice that you hear, that you heard before, that has changed. It's a new voice, it's a brand new voice, which manifests, but now the causes are different, right? So, because it's happening, we can change things. Similarly here as well. So, because of the nature of anicca, it is possible to purify our mind. And the reason why we don't have a pure mind is because we don't understand anicca. It's actually, it's like a catch-22, right? Ultimately, all we will have to understand, all that we are here to do, in order to become happy, to free ourselves from all kind of suffering, from all the anxieties, stress, jealousy, anger, fear, grief. For all of that, there's only one root cause, according to the Buddha. The cause is we don't understand about anicca. That means we don't understand about cause and effect. I don't want you to think that this cause and effect is something very complicated, like, you have to become a master of science or physics or something like that to understand this. No, these are some examples. It's not, you don't have to go more complicated than that, but you need to understand the profoundness in these simple ideas. That's something that happens to us as we improve our virtues, and as the qualities of our mind become pure and pure, right? So that's why we can start by making an offering, water offering. So when you offer water every day, or when you do it, make it simply with the idea that just as the water is pure, may also my mind be pure. So then your purpose is no longer to go into the world and try to, acquiring things in the world is not the ultimate purpose should not be the ultimate purpose of life. It is necessary to a certain extent, but the ultimate purpose should be to purify your mind. And how do we do that? Actually, by realizing about the truth of life. The truth means this teaching. in order to do that, we need to do merits. And the combination of that will set us free. So that's what happened to the Buddha. And that's what happened to his disciples. And that's what's happening to us as well. What we are doing in the monastery is nothing else than that we are practicing the same thing that what we are preaching. I mean, the Dhamma that I listened before I came to the monastery and the Dhamma that I'm listening now is the same. In essence, it's the same, but of course, as we progress and as we go deeper and deeper, as we improve our virtues, now we can see it deeper and deeper and clearer. But for us here, we are starting little by little by little. From the basics, we want to start with something that makes sense, apply that to our lives, see the results, and then little by little our life should change without us having to do a lot of things. I mean, it should become very simple, and that's the beauty of it, in my opinion. So all these offerings have a very nice meaning. Now I explained to you the water, even the flower offering. I don't know what. Now, as a higher ordained monk, I can't do it anymore because there's a rule for us why we can't pluck any flowers. But even that can be seen in many ways. One of the ways is, the way I like to think about it is that flowers symbolize happiness of the world we know, right? Flowers symbolize beauty. Beauty is what normally the bees and us humans get attracted to, right? So bees always fly to the flowers because of the smell, I think. And similarly, we as humans, we get attracted to the beauty that we get through our senses. So we think. We feel beauty, and we always believe that now this beauty is something that comes from various kinds of things. And that's what we run after, just like the bees. And then we work hard to acquire things, to build up something. How do we decorate our room? Have you ever thought about this? What do we have in our room? What do we bring home? What do we call our home actually? Home itself has a purpose. Home should be, on one hand, home should be a place to rest for our body, a place where we can gain strength, gain energy, and a place where we can be safe from the weather. It's not cold, it's not raining, and we have our physical necessities. Maybe we have our clothes, shoes, all the things our body needs. That's one aspect of home, but for us home is more than that. Home for us is also where we can bring all the things that are beautiful. So the people that we find most beautiful in life, these are the ones we want to live with. So we bring them home. And what are the material things we have? The books which we like, about the topics that we like, we buy them and put them into our bookshelves. And the pictures which we put on our table are the memories and the experiences that we have made, which were the most nicest ones, which we always want to think about, which by seeing them makes us feel good. In other words, we believe that beauty is there in these things, right? So we decorate our house with a lot of beautiful things, so we like to think. That's how it works. But actually, the Buddha has found something else. Have we decorated our room with beautiful things, or have we just arranged some things in our room? Actually, we just bought some things, but we haven't bought beautiful things. How much beauty have we imported through our house, through our gates, the house gates? How much beauty came through there? Not even a little bit. Nothing. So if there's a God and he looks at it through his eyes of wisdom, he will say, yeah, there were some stones and some cement and some wood and all these things was there before. Now it's still the same there. No difference. But we see a big difference. We say, no, now it's such a beautiful house, but before that it was not beautiful at all. When actually both of these were same in terms of the beauty. What we are talking about is in terms of beauty is the same, right? Maybe in terms of comfort for our body, it's not the same. So that's okay. We can count that. We can allow that. So we can justify the fact that we bought a bed. Maybe because that's what we need for our body, but a movie, a DVD, or a book, a nice Harry Potter book. Well, I'm not saying don't buy a Harry Potter book, that's not what I'm saying, but why? We should ask, why that? So now we can see, we don't put flowers on the head of the Buddha, right? We put it below, on the feet. So I understand the symbol behind that is to say that he rose above the sensual world's delight. Not by refusing or refraining from that, not necessarily by asceticism, but by realizing these things for what they really are, right? Even what flowers really are. And what this beauty really is. And then how beauty arises. That is not something that exists there, right? It's something that we feel in our mind, but not something that exists in the outside world. But normally most people don't understand these points. And accepting or coming to understand this point is something which needs a lot of courage, because it questions everything upon which our life depends, right? I met many people, and when we discuss these concepts, they are very refusing to even consider that everything they have done in the name of importing, acquiring beauty and happiness was maybe just a fallacy. And it is a fallacy in the end. Because then, of course, we would have to change our lives. At least we have to consider. Not necessarily what we do, but why we do it. It's not easy to do that. So, for me personally, I always wanted to know the truth since many years. So there's a certain amount of openness we need. Openness, but not blind believing as well. So even I'm talking to you, you should not simply believe me everything I say, because I could lie to you. But, however, we need to be open-minded, and at the same time we need to consider and think about these things for ourselves, and being able to apply them. Otherwise, if you can't apply these things, then it's not a realization yet. So, even when we're talking about flowers, you can see flowers is also a manifestation. Flowers is also actually not an entity. So we feel actually flowers is something like a one thing, like one. It's a thing. But even then, when you look at these flowers, you can see there are many causes that come together. None of them are a flower. I mean, there are different kinds of leaves. I can't show it to you, but you see there are many kinds of petals. None of the petals is the flower. It's just petals. But when you arrange these petals in this way, now we feel that's a flower. And now we feel that it is so beautiful, but actually all we have is causes, petals, right? So flower is not it's not a unit. Flower is also an effect. Flower is a manifestation. Causes come together, and that's all it is. It's not. There's actually no flower there. Okay. So this is a layer our mind cannot understand easily. The beauty that we feel also based on that, based on this idea that entities exist, flower exists. We're going to talk about this more in the future, but I don't want to rush things too much because I think we still have some work left to do with the concepts that we have been talking about in the past. So I had another important thought this week that I wanted to share with you as well. That thought is, in order to go along this path, something we should train is to be able to see good qualities. Good qualities. Did I share the story of the flower vendor? I think I did so, right? Yeah, I did. Okay. So, I hope that you try to practice seeing good qualities in your life and around you. Because as I started to do that now, the temperament of the mind changes, and you become soft. You'll be able to appreciate the value of teachers, the value of parents, much more than before, and especially when you connect this to the theory of cause and effect as well, right? So, for me to be able to give this sermon to you, there are also many causes upon which that rests. So, for example, the driver. Without the driver, this is one of the causes. This could not happen. Without the audience, it could not happen. Because our collective merit power makes it possible. Depending on a different audience, it wouldn't be a different sermon, right? So I can't give credit simply to myself for saying, I have done this sermon. Can I give credit to only myself? Can I say I have done this sermon? Because if I have done this sermon, I should be able to do it whenever I want, right? But that's not possible. In other words, even this camera, even these lights, even the sounds outside are causes for this effect that we witness. So it's not something I can do. It's a result and effect of many causes. Each and every one of you sitting here is also one of the causes. So if you are nodding, or if you are getting tired, sleepy, it will have an effect. Right? It will have an effect on here, on this mind, on the thoughts that come. And likewise, when I came here, I did not have an agenda what I should talk about. And I think that's the best thing, because that's how my teachers always ask us to do that. So however the causes come together, that's going to be the best thing. So I was not planning to talk about cause and effect today, but that's how it happens. So the beauty about these causes and effects is, now you can no longer give credit to someone, right? Who can we give credit for the cleaning the plate? Who can you give credit to? Is it the water? Is it the soap? Not even soap and water can do the job, because somebody needs to rub, or the rubbing has to happen, right? Who's rubbing the bowl? Is it me? Is it something I can do? The rubbing, this act of moving the hand. Don't you feel like that's something that I am doing or someone is doing? But again, here also you find only many causes. You'll find, for example, now I'm asking you, can you stand up? Is that something that you can do? Don't you feel like that's something you can do whenever you want? But is that really true? Because now granted, now we can accept it has happened in the past. Standing up was something that happened. But is that something that you did because you can do that? Then you should be able to stand up whenever you want, right? If it's your ability, you can do it whenever you want. Is that how it works? No. Because a lot of causes have to be present. The nerves, your muscles, brain, mind, different kinds of causes have to be there. When the causes are there, when the causes align, effect will manifest. Effect will happen. That's why it happened in the past, we can say. Whenever it happened because of that. Not because you wanted to do that. Not because you did it. Not because you can do it. But, so then, there's something wrong with this feeling. I can do that. So that's not how it happens. So something in our mind goes against this nature of this world. Something makes us feel what we call fixedness. Fixedness means, now I am there, I can do that. This is an ability I have, right? So we give credit to ourselves for standing up. We give credit to ourselves for doing the sermon. We give credit to ourselves for moving our body. For when we eat, we feel that I am eating. We give credit to ourselves for seeing. We say, now I can see. What's your contribution in seeing? What do you have to do for that? Light is important. But without light, can seeing happen? Eyes, nerves, brain, these are all causes. All these contribute. So the thing is, you can never find a main cause. The main cause which you can give credit to more than the others. When we're talking about this sermon here, Discernment is also something where many causes contribute. The AC contributes, each of you contribute, the light, the microphone, your merits and my merits and what I have practiced, right? All these are causes. For this effect to happen, all of them has to be there. So you can't say this cause is the one that brought the effect. This is the cause which is the main cause, right? So when we are talking about beauty and when we are talking about happiness, we can apply the same concept. What is our experience of pleasure? What is our experience of beauty? Who is responsible for this feeling of happiness we have? Or when somebody blames us, when somebody insults us, when somebody hurts us, who do we point the finger at? Can we point the finger to someone? We feel now he's responsible, she's responsible because that's the main cause. He or she has done this to me because the pain I experience comes from there, right? Again, here you can also see we feel about main causes. We feel the pain I'm experiencing comes from this person. The beauty I'm experiencing is because this person has beauty. So this person is the main cause. But what is the beauty? What are the causes for beauty? There should be some object, okay? And there should be eyes. Yes, colors. So colors is a cause. We can say so. Shapes actually is also colors. Features also come out of colors. Okay, we can take all of these things. Light, yes, these are all good causes. But then there's some more, which is, let's say, most important. Expectation, vexation, these are also causes, right? In other words, can beauty happen? Can beauty be experienced when you get something that you were not hoping to get? Now, for beauty to happen, for you to feel happy about something, you have to want to see it. Now, I'm not saying that this wanting is something you have like a very conscious thing, something you continuously think about. For example, in the middle of the night, you wake up and somebody comes and gives you an ice cream. You might not have gone to sleep hoping to eat an ice cream, okay? No, none of us usually we do that. But when somebody gives us this ice cream, then wouldn't we say, oh, that's great, why not? So it's not like we wanted to eat an ice cream in that sense. But wasn't there still a kind of a fondness or likeness there all along before that? Yeah, was there. So in other words, because our mind had a certain liking for ice cream, there was a certain amount of vexation that we didn't feel. It's like sleeping. It's like It's like when you are walking on a part of the on the surface of the earth, but below that there's a volcano, which is, it's like actually below our feet. It's a very hot, right? In the surface of the earth, in the core of the earth, it's very hot. But because it is always static, normally it's static. We don't ever feel it. We feel it only when it erupts. Then we call it a volcano. But until then, it's like sleeping. It's just going on about its way. It's a little bit like that. As soon as there's a liking, liking is nothing more than, being fond of something. For example, yesterday we had an example. There was a person who said, not everyone who gets a child wanted to have a child, but can still be happy about that, right? So now we were discussing actually the same point that we are discussing right now. Aren't there people, when they get a child, they're happy about it, but they never wanted it? Because what I try to explain to you, that without expectation, you can't be happy about anything. In other words, if you didn't want a child, you can't be happy about having it. Right? So the point is, yes, sometimes it's not something planned, and it's also not something we wanted in the sense that we work towards it and things like that. But a fondness or a liking must have been there. So for example, when we surround ourselves with people and when we see others being happy with children, now in our mind, easily this view can take hold that that's something that's good and it gives happiness. So we have this fondness, although we never have any idea about executing and having a child maybe. But if it should happen, then, well, good, right? That means actually there is an expectation, but it's not something we really feel. It's something that's like sleeping, right? So there's a vexation, there's an expectation, but we don't feel that. What we always feel is only the reducing the reduction or the increase of vexation. When vexation erupts, like when a volcano erupts, that's when we say something bad has happened. When it reduces, then we feel that something good has happened. But actually, in both cases, we're talking about fire. Fire is hot. That means it's not something you should touch. So this vexation is like fire. It's not something you want to touch ever. Whether there's a lot of it or less of it, we always talk about fire, we never talk about coolness, refreshment. Such a thing we don't find anywhere, right? That's why our mind, there's a heat in our mind that's caused by vexation, and our mind has a level of vexation which is always there, and that's the heat. And that's why, for example, Nibbāna is what? Cooling of the heat, right? So now we can see we might not always want things deliberately, consciously, but in the back of our mind, we could say subconsciously or without being aware of this, a certain fondness for it can exist, right? For example, sometimes we have never experienced something. Like when a company releases a new kind of chocolate, a new flavor that they have created. Now, of course, no one expected to eat that because they didn't even know that it exists, right? But will chocolate not always be sweet? Yes, right. Most of it. Most of the time chocolate is always sweet. So for that reason alone, everybody who will eat this new kind of chocolate will be happy, because it's also something that they have been looking for. Maybe they didn't want to eat that kind of chocolate because, well, they don't know that taste, but part of this taste is that it is sweet. And that's what they have been looking for. So because of that, when they eat it, they feel happy. Not because of the new taste, not because of the sugar also. Because sugar is something that we always look for. Because we believe sugar has pleasure, sugar has beauty. Not even that's the case. Right? You have to distinguish, you have to separate these two things. Your experience of sugar is an experience of a taste, but you experiencing a delight, mental delight, is something else. So we might say sugar gives energy to your body. That's something you can also experience. If you maybe sometimes you have a headache, you feel tired, and you take something that gives you energy, you will experience the change of your what you feel in your body. You will feel that. Your physical sensations will change when you take it. But what I'm trying to explain to you is something you feel mental delight, mental pleasure. There's more than that, right? And that is something that you have to have a wanting to experience it. So beauty is something like that. Now to connect this with our previous discussion, who can you give the credits for beauty? Because if you have the object and you have the eyes and you have the colors and you have the light, but you don't have an expectation or a vexation, will you be able to experience beauty? No. That's something like this. There are two families. In one family, the father, he loves cricket. And in the other family, the father loves football. And for Christmas, one of the sons, he buys a ticket for the World Championship finals in football, let's say. And when he's asked for the address, he puts in the address. Of course, he can't put the name, because otherwise father would open that. So let's say he just puts the address and he makes a mistake in the street number. So now this ticket comes to the neighbors. So the father, who likes cricket a lot, now he opens the letter and he finds the ticket for football finals. So how happy will he be about that? How happy is let's say in Christmas, the boy gets the doll and the girl gets the car. How happy will the boy be about the doll? Not at all. Because you have all these causes, but you are missing the expectation of the boy for the doll. Because the boy never wanted a doll, but the girl wanted the doll, right? So here you can see. So here again we can see this is an experience, but we can't put the main cause. And the object is not the cause of this. I mean, not the main cause. It is important. Without object, you can't have it. Definitely. Right? Without the object, without seeing the object, beauty can't happen. That's clear. But you can't say it came from the object. Because then, what you're supposing is that this is the owner of this. This is the main cause in this kind of relationship. Such thing would be wrong. Because I gave you the example right now, right? if the football match is the main cause for this joy, beauty, pleasure, even the man who likes cricket, he should be happy. But he's not. So in that mind it does not arise because one of the causes is missing. So this is how you can understand this principle of cause and effect. It's always a lot of causes coming together, manifesting an effect. And we can't really talk about the main cause. These are very deep principles. I'm going to unravel them little by little. And then you can understand even about colors, about sounds, how it really works. Even scientists struggle to understand these things. So our mind is not used to think in this way. Our mind always likes to think in terms of entities and main causes. So therefore, continuously we feel, here I am, and I can do this, I'm doing this, and I have this ability, and I am, and we think in this concept of having. Having means we feel that there are things that we own. How do you think? Now we have talked about this wanting a lot. How wanting is what makes us suffer because of the vexation that it produces. And we talked about the fact that wanting creates fear, wanting creates grief. These are basically the two emotions that we are in most of the times. Either we are in grief, either we are in fear. Either we want something that we don't have, or we are afraid to lose something. Most people, when we live, what we focus on is having things in our lives. Having means these are things which are mine. For example, having a phone. I will give you another application of this principle of cause and effect. We'll try to understand this. I'm going to make this simple, but I'm trying to make this as simple as possible. When we're talking about this robe, for example, I'm giving you the simple example. This robe that I'm wearing, think about the trousers that you're wearing, or if it's not the trousers, maybe a piece of cloth that you're wearing. How do you feel about this? If I ask you, whose is this? Is it yours? Is it somebody else's? Now don't think about the Dhamma, don't think in terms of Dhamma, think about what your intuitive feeling is. What do you think about the piece of cloth that you're wearing today? Or even when you go home. Even you go home and you open your locker. So what do you see? Sometimes maybe if you are married, then there will be a locker and there will be different kinds of clothes. But some of them you feel belong to you, and some others belong to maybe your husband, maybe your children. Doesn't matter. Maybe there are clothes in your wardrobe which somebody gave you to borrow it. Maybe for a certain event, a friend of you gave you this so you can wear it, and now you still have to return this. So now it's with you. Don't we feel that now this is something that's mine, maybe this is not something that belongs to someone else, to my husband, to my friend. So we feel, when we look at objects, we feel they belong to someone, right? That's something we feel. Now, first question is that something that the objects have? Is that something that you can recognize from the object itself? In other words, if you were to have somebody else come into your wardrobe and look at all the clothes, would he or she know who these things belong to? Let's say you have a sari from your friend and you have one that's yours. Now if there's another person another friend of yours comes and looks at them, would he or she know which one is your friend's and which one is yours, and that they are your friends and yours, maybe somebody else's? No. So it's not something you can recognize from, it's not something that's in the sari, not something in the clothes. It's only something we feel. And actually different people can feel differently about it, right? So it's a bit like this beauty. Beauty is something we feel, but different people feel beauty about different things. It's like a bit of a hallucination. This ownership is a little bit the same, right? We feel it, but different people might disagree about this. This is one aspect. You can't recognize it, it's not something that's in the objects. But what does this feeling do with us? This feeling of having something, owning something. Now you have your piece of cloth and you feel that it is yours. It's what you feel. So we call it the sense of belonging. The sense of belonging. So I want you to understand what I mean when I'm talking about the sense of belonging. Wherever you go, all the time you experience life through a sense of belonging. You experience a sense of belonging, right? So if I ask you, this pen, whose is it? The school's. So the school owns this. Okay. The robe, the monks. That's what you feel. But is that also something objectively true? No. So again, I'll give you another good example. There's a man and he marries a woman in, let's say, in Germany. They married. So this woman feels, how about this man? It's my husband. Now this man goes to South America and maybe to Peru, maybe to Ecuador. And when he's there, do you think that the women who are living in this country know that he's married? They don't know that. So let's say he doesn't tell them that he's married. What can he not marry again? So, if marrying is if marriage exists in the outside external world, if this is something that's actually existing between people, and if you can only marry one person at any given time, would it be possible to marry another person? It wouldn't be possible. But can't he do that? So these are subtle points, yeah, you can understand this. I'll give you some more examples and it will make sense little by little. So, actually, if marriage is something that actually happens in the outside world, and if you are married and there's something that connects you and the other person in the outside physical world, you shouldn't be able to marry another one. It wouldn't be possible. But can't this man marry another person? He can. Why is it possible? Why is it that in some countries, for example, when I was in Iran, it's possible for a man to marry up to 4 women. But in Germany it's only possible to marry 1. So isn't it a convention then? Couldn't we decide in Germany to change the rules altogether? We could make anything out of this. We could say a man can marry up to 5, 10. We could say the same about women. Women can marry up to, and so on. So these are all just conventions of society. Because this bond or this sense of belonging does not really exist in the outside world between people anyways. Otherwise we couldn't change the rules simply by discussing about it, by setting new rules, right? This would not be possible. So in other words, this man can marry another woman in South America easily. So this woman now also, what does she feel about this man? The second lady from Peru, what she feels? This is my husband. So she belongs to me, he belongs to me. And the other woman in Germany feels he belongs to me. So don't they have conflicting feelings? One feels he belongs to me and to no one else, and the other one feels he belongs to me but to no one else. So this is what they feel, but who does he actually belong to? No one. We can't say. Right? So in other words, we feel a belonging, but nature doesn't know about it. That's a big problem. Because if nature would know that the saris you have in your house are all yours, would it be possible to steal them? No. But can't they be stolen from you? So nature allows that to happen, right? Because they are not yours actually. They are given to you. They are given to you. See it? Can you see it like that? We talked about this vipaka before. Things are given to you because you have deserved them. For something you have done, you deserve to have them. Not as in they are not given for you to own them. Okay? So I'm going to finish explaining this concept so you can clearly understand how it relates to your life and how it relates to our suffering. This is the most important point. Because we never suffer. Do we ever suffer if something gets lost? I mean, let's say your neighbor's saris get stolen. Do you get sad about that? No. So this sense of belonging produces a lot of suffering. Because if there's something that's yours and you like it, what do you feel? Fear. If you feel that it is yours and you like to keep it, you will feel fear. That will be one present, one gift. And the other one is, now, for example, this lady who married this man in Germany, now what does she feel? This is my husband. Did she have fear before she married him? No. So before that she was not afraid for this husband to do something wrong or simply to be sick and die. These things she never experienced the fear of that. What if he dies? What if he gets sick? No. But now she has fear. Right? The moment that her mind decided to feel that he's mine, now fear was there. And then if he's cheating on her, now if there's some husband somewhere who's cheating his wife, is that something to our concern? Usually not, unless he is the husband of my sister. In other words, then he is the husband of my sister. My. My isn't the important word here. Right? It's my sister, right? If it's a sister's husband, does it matter? No, right? Then it doesn't matter. But if it's my sister and her husband, then it matters, because again there's a sense of belonging here. So fear, and of course when he cheats on her, what do we experience when he cheats on her? What's the experience, the emotion we feel? Somebody cheating on us? Then he has betrayed our expectations of something, right? Then we call it grief. So you see, the sense of belonging creates a lot of suffering. The funny thing is, nothing in this world is really ours. So for example, the clothes that you have in your wardrobe, they are there, not because they are yours. They have been given to you to use because of something you have done. In other words, because of some causes which are present, that is in your wardrobe right now. I can't say that it is yours. You know, what's the border that you can say it's yours? Is it when it enters your house door, or is it when it goes into your wardrobe? How long does it have to be in your wardrobe so that it becomes yours? Right? What's the moment that it became yours? All that happened is the sari was in the shop. Now the sari is in the car. It is at different locations, but it never had any owner. Even when it was in the shop, it was not the shop owners. It was simply there because of the causes which were there. Now it's in your wardrobe. It's not yours still. In other words, every time you use it, it's not because it's yours that you can use it. So this is an important point. Things are not the things you are using. It's not because they are yours that you can use them. It's because there are causes present that you can use them. Right? Does it make sense? You can stand up not because it's your body. Because if it would be your body, wouldn't you be able to say, this body, stay young, and the body would stay young. Stand up, the body would stand up. Sit down, the body would sit down. Don't get old, don't get sick. Does it happen? No. Don't get Alzheimer's ever? No. You can't know that. Don't get toothaches? No. So the body doesn't know you are the owner, or actually the body doesn't know who is its owner, because the body is nature and nature has no owner. But in our mind, this sense of belonging is created. It happens. Now there's a feeling that this is something that's mine and I'm the owner. This body belongs to me, therefore I can move it the way I want. Can you? Does the body listen to you? No, of course not. So the body standing up, walking, nodding your head, is that something you can do? No, when the causes are there, it happens. Right? So it's a process. So now you can see things are not this is the main point. Things are always to use and not to own, because when the moment that we feel ownership, that's when we start to suffer. Right? So, in other words, our suffering in our lives comes when we feel this ownership, when we feel mine or not mine. This is my pen. But can you see that there are many pieces of clothes, many saris in this world. Let's take these examples. Many trousers, and they are at different positions at this moment, and many different places. But there's no owner to any of them. But because of some reasons, that's where they are at this moment. If the reasons change, then of course their positions will change. That's why actually owners can change. That's why you can start to use something that somebody else has used before, because there's no owner to this. Therefore, when the causes change, you can use something that somebody else has used before. Otherwise, that should not be possible. Right? Can't you use the phone that somebody else has used before? Yes, because does the phone care about who's using it? Does the phone know who's the owner? No. The phone never knows about that. So therefore, anyone can use it. It always only depends on who has it in its hand and who's pressing the button. That's all that matters. Even when you give your phone your fingerprint, so for example, yesterday I was using the computer and I was logging into the email account, and then it said on the screen, I will write it down. First we need to verify that it is you. Okay, that's what it said. So this is what was on the screen. First we need to verify that it is you. Then I was asking myself, okay, how can he verify that it's me? How can he do that? What does he want from me now? Now what does he actually want? A password, right? So the computer takes the password as a proof that it's me. Because only I know the password, right? Is that the case? It's not my password. Whoever has this password, if other people can also know it, of course. And if they know it, and if they put it in here, what will the computer think? Yeah, then it's him. So in other words, actually, you cannot prove your identity. That's the point. We are just touching the surface in these topics. They are very interesting topics. Try to make sense of them. We'll go deeper sometime later. But they're really interesting. And the thing is, then you'll start to see the world from a totally new point of view. Because we always feel that, of course, I can prove my identity. And this is a proof. Because of this password now, this phone is something that belongs to me. So, this is usually why when people buy a phone, the first thing they do, in other words, to make it theirs, they make a password. Because then now it's personalized, right? When it's in the shop, it's not personalized. But when it has a password, now it's like, what dogs do when you go when you take them on a walk. Have you ever wondered? I did that. I was thinking about these things when I was in Germany, and my family, we have a dog. So I took the dog for a walk. The first thing the dog does is, when it comes to a bush, it's marking its territory. So what does it really do? It just peeing, or it's just, urinating. But that urine smell, which is actually it's just a smell. It's just a smell. It's not something unique. But to the dog, what does it symbolize? This is mine. So even a smell belongs to someone, right? So you and me and our ignorant minds, we not only feel that the things we see belong to someone, also the things we smells also have owners. That's why we feel that we can, when we smell a t-shirt, this is the smell of this person, this is the smell of that person. But we never feel that this is just a smell made out of some enzymes and proteins and carbohydrates. So we feel that this smell belongs to this person, he's the owner of this. So if I want this smell, I need to go to this person and get it from him, because he's the unique owner of this smell. But it's actually just a bunch of carbons and proteins. You could fake it, you could recreate it, just as much as this password here, whoever knows it can put it. So in that sense, this uniqueness that we feel, actually, as we go on, we'll realize it's not something we can ever prove. So how can I prove this computer that it is me? I can't, because the password is not something unique to me. This password is just a password. Whoever has it can use it. So in other words, this computer cannot find out, and it also doesn't care about who's using it. The phone that you have doesn't really care whether you use it or someone else. Even if you have a password on your phone, it's still not yours. That's what I'm trying to say. We feel that by putting a password on the phone, it becomes mine, and now the phone knows it. And now the world knows that it's mine. Just as much as the dog, when it pees on this piece of land, feels, now this land is mine. So that's now the reality. But ultimately it's just a smell. It doesn't mean anything. It means what you create yourself. You create the meaning yourself. So when you look at the phone and you put in the password that you put in a password, actually what you have done is you have put in a password. Can't you put so for example, if your wife buys a phone, can't you put a password for her as well? Right? So in other words, if you can put the password for someone else, it doesn't really matter to the phone at all who's putting it, and you give the meaning. We give the meaning to the password we add. So you can add a password into a phone, and now it means to you that this is mine. Or you can put the same password and the meaning you give it is, it's my children's. The only difference is what meaning you have added to the password you gave the phone. You mean, what does the phone know? Can it read your thoughts? It can never read your thoughts. So let's say the password you give the phone asks you, give me your password. So you will give it ABC. Now in one case you think to yourself, this is the password, so this is my son's phone, so for him I made this password, and then I will tell him this password, and because then it is his password, so he can use it. So in other words, in your mind you decide, now this is my son's, right? In another case, you give this password and you decide, now this is mine. This part, where does this happen? my son's or mine, just in your mind. So the phone never knows about this, right? Can it read your thoughts? Is there a connection between your thought and the phone? No. So this is something you decide in your own mind and no one else knows about this, right? But the phone only knows about ABC. So in other words, whoever gives ABC can use the phone. Or even if the wind by accident puts in ABC and presses enter, even the wind would be able to use it, right? It doesn't matter. Only thing that matters is ABC and enter. So that's what the nature is concerned. But what we create in our mind, that's another story. The thing is, but this story is really relevant to your happiness and your suffering, because, as I tried to explain to you, the moment you feel something is yours, in other words, that's something you feel and that's your mind has decided that this is how it is. Right? I gave the example the other day. Somebody goes to the washroom and he has been sitting on that chair. Now if in our mind we feel, now this is the chair where I was sitting, so of course until the end of the sermon this is also the chair where I will be sitting on, because now it belongs to me for the duration of this sermon. So this is also a sense of belonging, right? It's something our mind created, but who does this chair really belong to? It's always down to the nature to decide who has what where, right? So the nature is in charge, or the cause and effect is in charge. In other words, as long as there are reasons for you to sit there, you will be sitting there. If one of the reasons are not there, you won't be able to sit there, even as much as you like it. Even as much as you like to sit there, it won't happen. It's based on the vipaka. In other words, if somebody else has done something, or if there are causes for somebody else to sit there, then this will happen, right? So actually this chair belongs to nature and nothing else. It's given to you to use because of you deserve it, because of something you have done, but that's not something fixed. That's the tricky part. But when the causes change, then anyone else can also use it. So it's always nature's. So none of these chairs have an owner. Even while you're sitting on it right now, it doesn't mean it's yours. But how do we feel? Don't you feel like the chair you're sitting on right now is mine? Right? And for example, when you put the bag on the chair next to you, you feel that somehow I also made that mine now. So that's a feeling. Now we won't be able to get rid of this feeling until tomorrow, but I want you to be aware that there's a problem with this feeling, although we have experienced this feeling all our lives, the sense of belonging. Practicing this anicca nature, cause and effect nature, then you'll be able to realize that this sense of belonging is actually only a feeling. It does not exist or extend to the outside world, to the world out there. So it's not a reality. It's not that things belong to people, or that there are people to whom things belong, or that they are owners of anything, right? That's why I try to explain to you what the phone knows. So this is the reality, and then this is the story we create in our mind. This is the illusion, this is the reality. What the reality is concerned is always only the causes and how the causes come together. So for example, this pen is not mine to use. It doesn't belong to, we can't say who it belongs to, but because of the reasons, I was able to use it, and because of reasons which are present, it's in my hand right now. But it doesn't make it mine. So it doesn't become special to me. It's not something special, right? And when you can see it like this, everything becomes the same. In other words, we as humans, we are all one family from that point of view. When you have this sense of belonging, you feel there's my family and they are very special to me. Others are not special to me. So there's always a conflict. Right? This sense of belonging is why we have to fight against others. Actually, because the sense of belonging is a lie, we have to fight. Right? For example, aren't there countries fighting about a piece of land? Then they say, this should belong to our land. This belongs to our country. And then the other side says, no, this should belong to our country. So if it really belongs to one of the countries, now what's the matter? There would be no fighting. We wouldn't be able to fight because it's clear. Now it's clear this belongs to this country. So that's it. But because it doesn't belong, now we can come to discuss with each other and we can come up with conventional rules, and then fighting starts. Right? Only because it doesn't belong. If it belongs, then that's the end of the story. But owners can change. Why? Because they are only a convention. I'll give you another good last example. In our solar system, we have a lot. How many planets do we have? 8. Did we always have 8? No, we had 9 before, right? So I think 20 years ago, we had 9 planets. Now we have 8. So I think one of them destroyed, right? No. What happened? People came together and decided from today onwards, Pluto is no longer part of the solar system, right? So when they said that, did Pluto suddenly run away to the Andromeda galaxy? No. To the Alpha Centauri? No, it's still there. It's still there, but now, so it's like this. Sun is here, and there are some planets. I can't say, so when I say planets, I should better say there are some pieces of rock. Okay, pieces of rock. Some pieces of rock, some are smaller, some are larger, okay? So how large must a rock be to be a planet? There's a convention. That's why when you change the convention, what was a rock before or a meteorite before becomes a planet. Then you say it's a part of the solar system, then you say it's not. All of these are just imaginary lines in our mind. Actually, all of these are rocks. Nothing different from the rocks we have on the earth. But we don't call them planets, right? So so before that we said now all of this is one solar system. This is the Pluto, it's part of the solar system. Now what people then did is they came together, met together and said, we should change that. We should no longer consider this as part of the solar system. So now it no longer belongs to the solar system. That's what they agreed. Now they move this line from here to here. So this line that never existed, and it still does not exist, it's only a line, conventional line in our mind. That's why countries don't exist as well. I mean, what are countries? Countries are also just conventions. Right? That's why when you look at the borders in Europe, how many times they have changed. After every war, they go from this country to that country, and this part belongs to this. So some of the places in Europe, when you study their history, over the last 300 years, they had five owners. Sometimes it belonged to France, then it belonged to Germany, then it belonged to Switzerland, or something like that. Especially in East Europe, some parts of Poland, today Poland, sometimes it belonged to Austria, sometimes it belonged to Ukraine, sometimes it belonged to Soviet Union, sometimes it belonged to Germany. But ultimately, when you go there, all you will find is just a bit of grass and just a bit of wheat and just a bit of corn and trees, right? But then again, people feel that if there's a cow, it's eating on Polish ground. So the milk that you get is Polish milk. That's very different from the German milk, right? But actually, milk is milk. So we're going to talk about this topic more, sense of belonging. It's a really interesting topic. I hope you can take these simple examples, for example, the wardrobe example, the chair example, Pluto example, to see that it's a feeling, but it's not reality. I'll give you more examples next time, maybe next week. And we are not just talking about this academically, as in it's an interesting topic, we have nothing better to do, because we need to understand that our life's problems have to do with this. Okay, so in other words, this is the cause of our suffering. Because sense of belonging leads to fear and grief and vexation. These are just words for vexation, as you know. Fear and grief is ultimately suffering or vexation. So in other words, by understanding the nature of cause and effect, this thing will no longer happen. You will no longer feel belonging. You will feel only things are happening. For example, that's why I say try to contemplate about this point, that things are to be used and not to be owned, because using is something that happens when the causes align, and owning is something that just exists, that's just there, right? So owners are something fixed, but using is something that can happen when causes align. So why can you stand up? Not because it's your body and you are the owner of your body, it's simply because it's the alignment of the causes. So this is a process. So when we go into this direction, even when you get old and someday you will not be able to move your hands anymore, even in that case you wouldn't suffer, because you realize what's really going on in this situation. And then you will realize that even this is something perfect. This is also nature. This is not something, there's nothing wrong with anything. But it totally goes against the way we have been used to think. And because of that we suffer a lot. So try to spot in your lives some moments when you at least can identify the sense of belonging itself. So spot objects which you can see where you feel, I feel this is mine, and ask yourself, does the object know about it? Is it something other people also feel? The same thing? And then ask yourself, okay, if it's now, how does it relate to your suffering? Isn't there always fear and grief involved in this? Even if there's something that's yours, but you don't like it. For example, you have in your house you have windows. So in your house, a bird does its business against your window or on your veranda. Now it's yours. You feel it happened to you or it happened to your house, but it's not something good. So you don't like it. In other words, not just things you like and you own give us some kind of suffering, fear and grief. No, also when things are ours and they are not good, then we don't like them. So we want to get rid of them. So even then we are unhappy about that. But if you would be able to live a life where you can see that nothing belongs to anyone, this concept of where you no longer feel this belonging, you will only feel that events are happening. Nothing belongs to someone. So you wouldn't feel that this is your body, this is just a body, this is just a mind, no owners. Then actually you feel nature as it really is, the way nature feels nature. right? Then you can see nature for how it really is. So that's where we want to go. So little by little we are going to go there. So today we talked a lot about Dhamma and some really nice and new concepts. So spend some time to think about these things, and we'll go on in the next few weeks about this. So now then we come to a close for today, and we are going to share our merits. And let us take a moment to transfer the merits that we have all acquired by making offerings to the infinite virtues of the Noble Triple Gem, chanting Pirit, listening to the Dhamma, and engaging in various meritorious deeds today. First and foremost, let us transfer these merits to all the bhikkhus, bhikkhunis, upasikas and upasakas who since time immemorial have protected and preserved the sublime teachings of the Buddha and have passed it down through the generations of the noble lineage in the form of the Tripitaka, which is thankfully available to us today to study, understand and comprehend the Dhamma. Let's also transfer these merits to all members of the Mahasangha present throughout the world, including the chief prelates of all of the chapters who have dedicated their lives towards the noble path and have committed themselves towards the betterment of all sentient beings. Let us also remind ourselves, let us also not forget the monks and nuns resident in your local temples and nunneries who have always been by your side through thick and thin, come rain or shine. Let's also transfer these merits to Guru Swami Nahanse, as well as all the monks resident at the monastery, as well as the Anagarika and Anagarika attached to the monastery. Let's also transfer these merits and express our gratitude to all those who make great efforts to disseminate the teachings of the Buddha, be that by transliterating these sermons, sharing them out with others, or inviting others to join them. May through the power of these merits, if any of them have been born in the woeful plane, they redeem themselves and be born in the blissful plane. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's also transfer these merits to our devotees, friends of the monastery, who for the sake of merits continue to sustain the Mahasangha by providing the four requisites and providing the know-how and extending their well wishes. Let's also transfer these merits to each and everyone who is engaged in organizing the event and making this sermon and these events possible. The chairman of the school and everyone who is involved in the administrative staff of the school. May through the power of these merits, they be healed of any physical and mental ailments and overcome any obstacles to their spiritual progress. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So also transfer these merits to our mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, brothers and sisters, sons and daughters, grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, nephews and nieces, our elders, friends and acquaintances, employers and employees, and to all those who have helped us and supported us and assisted us in every way, shape or form they could. May they be healed of any physical and mental ailments and overcome any obstacles to their spiritual progress. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's also transfer these merits to the Devas and Brahmas, spirits and demons, primarily the Sakadeva, as well as all the numerous gods and deities who are committed to protect and fulfill the Sambuddha Sasana. Let's also transfer these merits to our guardian deities who keep a watchful eye over us and keep us out of harm's way. May through the power of these merits, they prosper in divine power and wisdom. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's also transfer these merits to our ancestors, all those who have predeceased us, all those who have been families and friends to us in this infinitely long journey in samsara. Let's also transfer these merits to all members of the armed forces as well as the police force who have sacrificed their lives to protect the peace and harmony of our nation. May all those who lost their lives in the war, be they friend or foe, rejoice in the merits we've acquired today. Let's also transfer these merits to all those who lost their lives in natural calamities such as tsunamis, earthquakes, landslides and pandemics, reminding ourselves that among them will be those who've been family and friends to us in this infinite long journey in samsara. May through the power of these merits if any of them have been born in a woeful plane, they redeem themselves and be born in a blissful plane. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Finally, let us all resolve that may, through power and blessings of all the merits we have acquired throughout the day, we be able to witness the advent of many hundreds of thousands of Arahants on this blessed land. And finally, let us all resolve that may, through power of all the merits we have acquired today, you and I and everyone who has helped to make this program a success, become Arahatu Nahanse and Arahat Mahini Nahanse in this very life itself and in the era of the Gautama Supreme Buddha itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Now the Mahasangha will transfer their blessings to you. Raga ginnin midetva, dvesha ginnin midetva, moha ginnin midetva, Nibbāna parama sukhayin Sukhita tara vetva. Nibbāna parama sukhayin Sukhita tara vetva. Mamada siyalu loka siyalu satvayo. Nibbāna parama sukhayin Sukhita tara vetva. Nibbāna parama sukhayin Sukhita tara vetva. Nibbāna parama sukhayin Sukhita tara vetva. Raga gini niveva, dvesha gini niveva, moha gini niveva, nivan sapa labeva, nivan sapa labeva, nivan sapa labeva. Tunurange Suvisiyananda Mahaguna Milen Siul Loka Silu Satyo Nibbāna Paramasukhin Sukhitara Vetva. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.